Hobos gang came calling for Keith Daniels on an April evening 3 years ago. Daniels, a key witness in a drug trafficking case against the gang's feared leader, had been relocated by authorities to South suburban Dolton for his safety. But when the 27-year-old father pulled into his driveway with his wife and her 2 young kids, a gunman walked up and opened fire through the windshield, according to court records. He bailed out of the car and tried to run but was quickly cut down by more than 24 bullets as the children, ages 6 and 4, screamed in the back seat. After the assailant jumped into a waiting SUV and sped off, Daniels' wife called 911 to report her husband had just been shot. "I know who it was," she said, repeating the name 3 times, Polarowski. 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 Federal prosecutors say Polarowski was the street name for Paris Poe, a Hobos lieutenant who had cut off a court-ordered electronic monitoring device from his ankle and killed Daniels to keep him from testifying against Poe's boss, Gregory Chester. On Tuesday, Poe, Chester and 4 other alleged leaders of the Hobos are scheduled to go to trial on sweeping racketeering conspiracy charges alleging the gang was responsible for 9 killings, including Daniels' 2013 slaying, as well as a slew of shootings, robberies and home invasions. Each of the 6 faces up to life in prison if convicted. In addition to the frantic 911 call from Daniels' wife, jurors could hear dramatic testimony from both of his stepchildren about what they saw the day he was killed. In an interview with authorities in 2013, the younger child said the boogeyman who shot Daniels was wearing a Spider-Man mask. That appears to conflict with the mother's account that she saw Poe's face, a recent court filing shows. The older child also said the killer was wearing a mask and gave a video interview that could be played for jurors. Prosecutors, meanwhile, have objected to the defense calling the children to the witness stand, saying they are not competent to testify under federal trial rules because of their young ages. Not since the El Rotten trials 2 decades ago has so much violence been alleged against a single gang. Heavy security is expected at the Dirksen U.S. Courthouse in downtown Chicago for a trial that could last 2 months or more. The names of potential jurors will remain secret, with each member of the jury pool assigned a number and only vague questions allowed about their backgrounds and where they live. The U.S. Marshals Service had warned of threats made against witnesses and asked that the defendants' legs remain shackled during the trial, an unusual request typically seen only in high-profile terrorism or mob cases. On Friday, however, U.S. District Judge John Tharp said he didn't want the defendants in shackles because of the very real possibility it would prejudice jurors. Instead, Tharp's 14th-floor courtroom has been set up with long tables draped with black skirting that blocks views of the legs of those seated. That way, the judge said, if he has to order shackles at some point during the trial the jury will not notice any difference. If I have any concerns that there are activities going on, communication going on with members of the public or any acting out, the skirting will allow me to revisit it, the judge said. The trial comes at a time of increased concern about violence in Chicago with homicides and shootings soaring by close to 50% over a year earlier, to levels unseen in 2 decades. Gangs drive much of the violence. Prosecutors allege the Hobos represented a new breed of gang that was made up of members from diverse gangs who were once rivals. Many of the Hobos started in the now-demolished Robert Taylor and Ida B. Wells public housing complexes from factions of the Gangster Disciples and the Black Disciples street gangs, according to prosecutors. The origin of the Hobos name is uncertain, possibly a reference to the loss of their homes after the razing of their public housing complexes. But jurors are expected to hear evidence that members called each other hobo during conversations, got tattoos identifying themselves as hobos, used a unique hand sign and took lavish trips together to Mexico and the Caribbean. The gang rose to the top of the city's drug trade by using violence to protect its interests, prosecutors allege. While the gang's criminal activity dates to at least 2004, the killings alleged in the indictment took place between 2006 and 2013. Among the casualties were two gang rivals who had just attended a funeral, a semi-pro basketball player who was slain in a case of mistaken identity, an innocent bystander from Los Angeles visiting relatives, and an elderly woman killed in a car crash as police chased a fleeing hobo member. Chester, the lead defendant, was considered the head of the Hobos because of his connections to drug suppliers, authorities said. His nickname, Bowlegs, stemmed from a birth defect, but he ruled with an iron fist. Hobos' reputed gang leader Paris Poe's arm tattoo shows the misspelled rank of Chief Hobo. U.S. Attorney's Office: anyone who dared cooperate against the Hobos during their heyday faced the threat of death, according to the charges. To back up its threats, the Hobos used high-powered firearms, including assault rifles and handguns with 30-shot magazines, an unusual arsenal for a street gang, authorities said. The gang also enhanced its street reputation by carrying out robberies and home invasions of drug dealers and other well-to-do targets, including Bobby Simmons, a former NBA player whose white gold necklace worth more than $200,000 was stolen from him at gunpoint in June 2006 outside a River North nightclub. But the focus of the trial will be the killings. The first involved drug dealer Wilbert Big Shorty Moore, who was gunned down in January 2006 in front of a barbershop in the Bronzeville neighborhood because of his cooperation with authorities, prosecutors allege. Poe is accused of firing at Moore from a car at 43rd Street and Cottage Grove Avenue after being tipped off that Moore would be there. An FBI report filed in 2009 as part of a different case showed Moore had been involved with Chicago Police Sergeant Ronald Watts, a dirty cop arrested in 2012 for shaking down drug dealers at Ida B. Wells. An informant told the FBI that Watts was running his own drug operation there and Moore had told him the Hobos had robbed some of the narcotics, according to the report. The informant, believed members of the Hobos street gang discovered that Big Shorty told Watts of their involvement in the robbery and this resulted in Big Shorty's murder, the FBI report stated. Watts and an officer under his command were later arrested for ripping off a drug courier in what turned out to be an FBI sting. Watts was sentenced in 2013 to 22 months in prison. 8 months after Moore's slaying, Chester was shot multiple times at a car wash at 76th Street and Vincennes Avenue. Poe fired back, authorities said, but an innocent bystander, Kevin Thompson, was fatally wounded. Thompson had traveled from Los Angeles to visit relatives in Chicago for his 42nd birthday. In December 2007, semi-pro basketball player Eddie Moss Jr. had stepped outside the front door of his father's Englewood house and was cut down by a barrage of gunfire. His father, Eddie Sr., told reporters at the time that he made it outside to see his son take his last breath. According to authorities, an alleged hobo named Byron Brown had ordered an unarmed Moss down on the ground and executed him in retaliation for the wounding of another Hobos member, a man who is expected to be a key witness in the trial. Moss, according to authorities, was a victim of mistaken identity. 3 months after his slaying, Brown, who has since pleaded guilty to his role in the conspiracy, was captured on an undercover recording telling an associate how he'd killed Moss, court records show. "I popped him. That was me," Brown said, according to a transcript in a recent court filing. "I told him, look, now face the ground."